Good morning. Welcome back to this week's session of Women of the Bible. This session is number 9 now, and we are looking at Mary of Bethany. Just a little background on Miss Mary. She is actually the sister of Lazarus and Martha. So we're going to look at this little story that I have found interesting and a little fun facts here and there um, as we go along. So we're going to start out in prayer, and then we're going to get into the gist of this. Okay, dear Lord, thank you so much for giving me, um, just like you did this woman. Thank you for the best that has ever come, for you being our. I can't talk today. You are the best that has ever come into my life. I pray I never forget the sacrifice you paid for me, just like this woman gave you her best, an offering to you. I pray that I will too. I pray that I see the moments that I can give you all the glory. I pray that I will um, know the cost of what you gave me and why. And I pray that I just never forget the sacrifice that you gave, that none of mine could ever come into comparison to the price that you paid for me. Lord, I pray that others also see that they mean just as much to you. I love you, Lord, and in Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen. Okay, guys, so this week's, again, let me start out with just a reminder. Okay, first, if you've never met me, I'm Melissa. I live in rural America. I'm talking like out in the middle of a cornfield type of thing, or beans, depends on the year. I'm just a normal, everyday woman that just likes to dig into God's word. Sometimes I feel like I need to dummy it down, or as I like to call Fisher Price things, to where it's like so simple a 5-year-old can understand it. And that's why I started these sessions of Women of the Bible, because I just feel like sometimes I need things simplified a little bit. I need vocabulary words broken down into things that just make more sense to me. And I want to share that with you guys on how I just like to study the Bible. Um, Sometimes that's for people, sometimes it's not for people. And if it's not your cup of tea, it's totally okay. You can totally scroll on and it's not going to hurt my feelings any. But this week's Woman of the Bible um, is not as juicy, as spicy as last week's. I feel like last week's had a little bit of spice to it. Um, this week's not so much, but it has a little punch, a little bit on a couple spots. Not so much with what she did, but with just how others reacted to the situation, type of thing. So we are going to be looking at, I've got my notes, okay? And again, I write mine down, and I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, poop. Um, this week I use my glitter pen, because sometimes when you're studying the Bible, and you're a woman, you just prefer a little sparkle as you're going. So don't be afraid to use your glitter pens, and yeah, and go that route with it, because sometimes it just makes your study time even more fun, and that's okay. Find some highlighters you like. I have sparkle highlighters too. So I'm just saying, sometimes you can use all the fun things and you'll be just fine. Makes the time more enjoyable. That's all. I only wrote like 12 pages of notes out, and use like the whole entire pen. And when I do it, I like to color code things. So each week is like a different color, so I can keep up on track. Someday this might get typed out, but if not, what a treasure for my kids, right? I'm sure they'll be fighting over it after I pass away. Okay, anyway, let's get going with this week's lady, right? Okay, so she, like I said, is Mary, not the sinful woman. So just let me get this straight, because it had my brain going, wait, what? Oh, what? My brain was a little confused there at first. So when I was looking for this woman, I have a Bible that I like to use. It is, I'm going to get it down for you. I'm dropping my stuff. this one, Women of Faith Study Bible. So what it does is, we're just going to turn to Mark real quick. I'm going to show you it, okay? Because I feel like it's fun. So some spots, you see where it says Women of Mark, it'll give you like a list on each Bible book, okay? Book of the Bible, however you want to say it. And it gives the women in that particular one. And I was like, oh, this is like so handy because I wanted, like, this is awesome. But it was like, says, woman with a jar of perfume, Mary of Bethany. So that's what Mark's little notes say in this Bible. So I was like looking at it, but then it says there was another one in, was it Matthew? I think is what started this, where my brain got confused. Um, there's a Mary of Bethany, but one of them said sinful woman or something like that, and she also had a jar of oil. So let me just, if your brain is like mine, which it may not be, but this is where mine went this time, is that for some reason at first when I was studying this particular woman, um, it said that we were doing like back and forth type of thing, and it was going, okay, they're the same woman. And I was like, well, that's a weird story about Mary, which was Lazarus' sister. Like, that's kind of cool that Jesus didn't call her out on her sin, like it didn't mention it. And then I was like, wait a minute, wait, what? And then I'm like Googling, I even asked our pastor type of thing, and it's two different women, you guys. The one in Luke, chapter 7, verses 36 through 50, different woman than what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to be in today. I just want to put that out there in case you're like me and be like, okay, it's the same one. It's okay. So we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 26, verses 6 through 13, Mark chapter 14, verses 1 through 11, and then John chapter 12, verses 1 through 11. Okay. That's what we're going to look at. All right. Okay, so we're gonna break this down as a, to start with, as like a who, what, when, where type of thing. So because like I said, we already learned a lot that there's actually two women of the Bible that have jars of oil. They both poured on Jesus. We're only gonna look at one of those today. So where does this story take place? Bethany. That's also where Lazarus was. It's the same guy Jesus, which was the same guy Jesus raised from the dead. Okay. Um, it's a little southeast of Jerusalem, and this happened at Simon the leper's house. We're going to talk about his nickname here in a second. When it was just days before Jesus' crucifixion, there's some timelines that say it happened before he entered in for the triumphal entry. I just want to say, let's not get too hung up as far as chronological type of stuff. It's the same story. So we're just gonna look at we're gonna look at the big picture and not concentrate on the teeny tiny details. Okay, um, we're not gonna argue about that part. Um, it's very, so I went over that type of thing again. Different. That was the other thing about this oil, the sinful woman story, is it happened like way before this one in Jesus's ministry earlier. So the timelines don't match up. So there's no way it could be the same woman. Okay. This happened like just before the Last Supper, so this is not the Last Supper. This happened a few days before that, a few days before. It's even said like a few days before Passover, that type of thing. So um, I kind of picture this as not the Last Supper, like I just said. This is more like the last meal Jesus had with his friends. Is kind of how I picture it. Again, just my personal opinion. It's how I look at it. Is it accurate? Questionable. But in my head, that's how I'm thinking of it. I kind of feel like it's like it happened right before his crucifixion, that type of thing. He knew that. He just wanted to get all his friends together for a last fun meal type of thing. And that's kind of what um, I picture on this one. Um, who was there? So you have Simon the leper. He was the homeowner. That's Matthew 26:6 that says that. Also, Mark 14:3 says that. Lazarus Remember, he's the one that sorry, my hair is driving me crazy right now. He's the one that is in John 12:2 mentioned, that's flat out says Lazarus is there. Martha, Lazarus's sister, she's like serving everybody because that's her superpower. Mary is Lazarus's sister as well, Martha's sister. All same family, all three same family. That's John 12:3. Um, in Matthew and Mark, it just says a woman. So I love that John is specifically telling us names. Okay. I love the details that John gives us, and it kind of helps us, our brains just kind of picture things. I love a hard page book. As you can see, I don't use my tablet to write these things out. Um, and for some reason, I'm just always been one of those, I really do like to read, and it helps me just visualize in my brain the the scene here we got going on. So I don't really know what any of them look like, so I just kind of make up pictures. So that's what you got. In Matthew, it says disciples. It just kind of blankets everybody. It doesn't really say anything besides that. Or it says some of those present. Mark says that, 14:4. Um, but this is where it gets kind of what I said, kind of juicy a little bit. In John 12:6, he calls out Judas. He specifically says Judas Iscariot. Um, and he just, like I said, he flat out calls him out. Remember, Judas is the same one that betrayed Jesus. Um, sorry, I'm these weird. Yeah, so Jesus was called, yeah, he just called him out type of thing, right? Is what John did. Um, because yeah, we're gonna look at this here in a second. We're gonna look at it in a second. Why it bothered Judas so much? Why Judas is mentioned so blatantly? Okay, so let's break this down. This was the last friends meal. Okay, this is not the last supper. Okay, totally different. Um, again, I feel like this is the one he had with all his friends, type of thing. This is the one that mentions the host, Simon the leper. Um, what a way to be known, right? Like, I'm just like, in a way, I kind of hope, like, it says that that Jesus healed several lepers, right? Jesus healed the leper. Jesus, I want to picture in my head that Simon is one of those lepers, and unfortunately for him, the nickname stuck because I can't imagine that Jesus let him stay a leper. You see what I'm saying? And I'm just like, when I was in our group today, one of the other ladies said that too. She was like, as a kid, so some of those nicknames just stick with you no matter what, and you're not even the same person anymore. But because of that's how they knew you, that's how they just keep calling you your nickname. And I was like, maybe, or maybe it's just like in my head right now, I'm just thinking that maybe Jesus thought it was like a joke, like, like, it's just fun. It's just a fun, loving way to make fun of somebody right now. Maybe that's why they did it. I'm not really sure, but I feel kind of bad for Simon that he still has this nickname that probably has nothing to do with how he is anymore. Um, then you've got there's Lazarus's sisters, Mary and Martha. Um, so I also learned, I don't know why, but I guess I just wasn't putting two and two together that this particular Mary was the same Mary that was sitting at Jesus's feet, and Martha was like, can't you just get up and help me? So we're gonna have like a whole different session on Martha and Mary's dynamic for that actual story. We're gonna do that one at a different time. We're only gonna look at this specific part of it, and that's mostly gonna be looking at Mary during this session. So I just want to put that out there. We're not going to forget about Martha. I promise. Okay. But for this story, we're going to talk about Martha, but we're going to be more like what her role was and what Mary's role really was during this. Okay. So again, Martha's going to get her own special session at a different date. Okay. I did notice in all of Matthew, Mark, and John, it says something about. Sorry, I need a drink. That they were reclining at the table. Now, remember during the Last Supper, all the things that we see, it says they were sitting at the table. We see that beautiful painting, right, where they're all sitting at a table, and you got the V in the middle of Jesus leaning one way, the other one leaning. Last Supper painting, right? We all have seen that, right? This isn't that meal. Remember, this is like the Friendsgiving type of meal, okay? So they're all reclining at the table, and so I had to Google this. My brain was not letting me drop this. It would not go past it until I looked it up. Okay, again, this is just how my brain is. I hope you guys enjoy this. I don't know. I really loved Alice in Wonderland, the movie and the book as a kid. I feel like me and Alice would have been best friends someday. So that's, you get like the Alice in Wonderland version of the Bible sometimes when we do these sessions. Okay, guys? I'm just throwing this out there. I'm just going to be honest with you right off the bat. So this isn't your vibe. It's okay. If you want to stop your video now, I get it. I do. But if you're going to track with me here for just a minute, just for entertainment purposes, maybe. Okay. So we're talking about reclining. So the reclining part. So I Googled it, and it said that they would recline on like their left, and then they would lay on their left side, propped up with their elbow, and they would have cushions to help prop them up, probably a lot of cushions under them to help prop them up. The table would have actually been up off the floor. It wasn't like a picnic like blanket type of spread. It was a table, but it was like a short table, okay? And they were reclining in it. So most of them, like, let's say, let's say this is the table. They were like this way from the table. Okay. So here, I've got a bookmark. We're going to say this is the table. Okay. Sorry. Let's say this is the table. Okay. They could be like pointing out away from the table type of thing. So their feet would be like away. All right. So that's one. I just don't feel how see how that was very comfortable. Because in my head, I'm thinking if I was propped up on my shoulder like this, my shoulder would start cramping. My arm would start going to sleep. I don't see how that was comfortable to eat. And some of their meals lasted hours. I don't get it. Um, Maybe they had more pillows than I'm imagining. Maybe it was just a room filled with pillows and cushions. I'm not really sure. What did they stuff the cushions with? If you know, pop it down in the comments, okay? Um, but the feet were pointing away, all right? Let me just make that clear. Because let's say dusty feet, most of the time you would wash the feet. Again, that we're going to talk about later on in a different story, different woman with oil, okay? Um, so it says that Mary had an alabaster jar of oiled perfume. That's Mark 14:3 and Matthew 26:6. That specifically says alabaster jar. Well, then I went down a different rabbit hole and was like, what is an alabaster jar? So go Google alabaster jar. At some point, I will figure out how to flash the fancy pictures up at this point and put it on and be like, this is an alabaster jar. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet. So if you're willing to give me lessons, let me know that too. Um, but an alabaster jar was a translucent. If you don't know what translucent means, because that's a kind of big word that we don't use every day, that means kind of clear. It's cloudy type of thing, but you can kind of see light pass through it. Gypsum stone, that's like a clearish kind of stone. These kind of jars were specifically made for oiled perfumes, and they were very pretty from the ones that I saw when I was doing Google images. Okay. It was filled with nard, and I was like, what the heck is nard? Because John says it was a pint of pure nard. So, what is that? Well, thank goodness for study Bibles. If you don't have one, let me get the other one. Because this is a study Bible, but that's my women's one's a different kind of study Bible. So if you don't have a study Bible, it kind of looks like this. I have the NIV Life Application Study Bible is the one I use. But do you see all of this right here? This coincides with this up here. So it kind of gives you extra bits that you don't know up there. Okay, it kind of gives you like fun facts, breaks things down a little bit more. So yeah, I would love to have an NLT version. I had one years ago and then I gave it away. So the NLT version is on my Amazon wish list, but as of right now, I have an NIV. It still works. But yeah, if you are studying the Bible, I highly, 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 highly recommend that you get a study Bible because it's very handy. So, my little study notes from my Bible, study Bible says, um, it was a fragrant ointment imported from the mountains of India. Um, it was very expensive. So if you're like, how expensive was this? Well, it actually tells us. It was a year's worth of wages type of expensive. Um, so, and again, it says, I'm just like, can we still buy nard? Like, can you still buy nard in an alabaster jar? If you can, post it down in the comments. I'm not saying that I want to buy it because nowadays, if it was expensive back then, it's going to be expensive now, I'm sure. And I probably can't afford it. But I'm curious to know, can you still buy an alabaster jar of nard? Curious to know. Um, so let's go back to Mary, because now that we went down that crazy train for a hot minute. Remember that Mary poured this on Jesus's head. She poured it on his feet. She didn't even ask for permission. She just did it. She felt called to do it. She felt like she needed to do this sacrifice for Jesus. I wonder if she already knew as she was packing her bag, because remember, this says it was at Simon the leper's house. She's not at her own house where she could just go to her bedroom, get it, and bring it out. She had to be thinking about this ahead of time. So, my question is, she already know, like before she got there, what she was going to need it for? I mean, I'm sure she knew who she was going to need it for. Sorry, you guys. I'm looking. There it is. Chapstick. It's not really chapstick. It's like tinted Vaseline. But fun fact, I can't stand it when my lips feel dry. Um, not giving. I'm not sponsored by Vaseline at all, but I love their product. So that's a tinted one. Just saying. I like a little blue color. Anyway, all right. See, Alice in Wonderland. Um, so she felt like she needed to do this. Um, again, I wonder if she knew what she was doing before she was packing that evening. I feel like she did. I feel like she had already heard God's voice saying, Mary, I need you to take this with you to Simon Leper's house. When you get there, I'll let you know what you're doing with it. It kind of reminds me of like when Jesus was at the wedding and they ran out of oil or ran out of wine. Sorry. They ran out of wine and his mom's like, just do whatever he tells you. They're not going to know why they're doing what they're doing, but they're just going to do it because he tells them to do it. So that's what I kind of imagine, like in this moment, that Mary was just like, okay, I don't know why I needed to take this with me at this moment, but I'm going to pack it anyway. Um, I feel like she may have also understood that what the evening meant. Um, it feels to me like sometimes after Mary was sitting at Jesus's feet at one of the other meals at their own house, that maybe Mary was just like God had put her more in tune with what the situation was. Um, she could maybe read the room a little bit more. I don't know. There's just so many, like, part of me is just like, wow. Like, it hits you when you really start thinking about it. Like, what a night, right? Remember that she was pouring this expensive oil on Jesus' feet, wiping it away with her hair. To me, I joked earlier this morning with our fellowship group that we do sometimes in the mornings before I go live or before I go on these videos with you guys. And my daughter works for a certain hair company, starts with an M, and they have this really good oil treatment for hair, and she's always boasting about it. And yes, I do use it. Um, but I was like, Micah, it was like the first oil treatment for hair. And she was like, yes, it was like the OG. And then she said the name. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get in trouble. Um, but if you know, you know. Okay. She was doing this as a sacrifice. And, I imagine her going into her bedroom before she went to this place and was like looking at her because I feel like Lazarus and his sisters were like a wealthy family. And because how else would they be able to afford a year's this oil, right? How could they even afford this perfumed oil, right? If they weren't already rich. So I imagine that she went into her room and was like, they were all lined up on the shelf, and she's just like, that's the one. And she grabs the most expensive one for the sacrifice that she wants to do. She wants to give her very best oil that she has to Jesus. Um, and she's sacrificing her very own bit here. Sorry, hang tight. My screen went dark on me. Are we still going? Not seeing it. So I think that she knew what she was. She went in the room, she picked her very best one, she came out. Um, so yeah, I just love it. I think she knew right from the very beginning kind of what she was attending. Because she kind of had that type of vibe with him from the past. Um, she knew the time that she had with him on earth was very limited, and she wanted to make the best of it. Um, I notice how she recognized that moment, but the disciples still didn't have a clue. No matter how much he told them, they were still like, "Wait, what?" type of thing. I don't know. I don't get that either. Um, they just weren't picking up what he was laying down, pretty much, right? But Mary did, and Mary brought Jesus a huge personal sacrifice. Um, I love Yeah, I'm seriously, you guys, it's not an ad. These little rubber cross bracelets I love, and my favorite color is pink. And I was just imagining like if I had my pink bracelets on, and would I give it to Jesus? Like if I would I give it to Jesus? And my answer is yes, absolutely. But then I started thinking, could and would I give this up to someone else that I knew just needed it? And I'm like, or would I say, oh, thank you. This is where you can get yours instead of just giving up my own. And I don't know, like those little moments like that are the ones when I'm just like, oh, I really need to remember to be in that type of moment and see those opportunities when God gives them to me. That those are the ones, sometimes it's just little acts of sacrifice here and there, and those little acts of faithfulness here and there that will make a huge difference. Again, not that you can earn your way into heaven. Let me make that very clear. There's only one way, and that is through the belief and surrendership to Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. That's the only way. Okay. You can't earn your way in. You can't just be a good person and be like, oh, I'm getting in. That's not how we do it. But he does talk to us about sacrificing things, being our best, doing our best, giving him our best. And sometimes, and he reminds us that we are a reflection of him. So I got to remember when I'm out and about to be more sacrificial in myself, right? Um, so let's keep going. Remember that. So the next thing, Mary's doing this. She's pouring the oil on Jesus. And imagine the room is just filled with the smell of this expensive oil. Well, you've got some versions that just say, some of them noticed type of thing. But John, on the other hand, totally just calls out Judas on this, okay? So Judas's reaction was he was not in the approval mode at all. He 10 did not recommend this. He was not he wasn't in awe. He wasn't like, oh my gosh, look at Mary. What a wonderful sacrifice. Not Judas's reaction. He was mad. But why was Judas mad? Well, that's because Judas was the accounts guy. He was the money holder guy. He was the embezzler guy. Okay, Judas was mad that she screwed up his little grand plan of dipping into the honey pot every day. Okay, he was ticked off because he knew how expensive that oil was. Remember, a year's worth of wages. Okay, so Judas is over there going, wait, what? He was super greedy. And yeah, of course, Jesus totally knew what Judas was doing. So that's the other thing I just want to remind you guys. God sees our hearts, He sees all. He knows when we're trying to be shady. Okay. But sometimes He just doesn't say anything about it in the moment. Okay. Because He's hoping that conviction, not condemnation. Okay. A lot of people get those two words mixed up. Conviction means we feel it inside ourselves and we're like, oh no, why did I do that? I need to make this right. So you feel convicted to do something different to make it better. Okay. So no, he didn't say anything like that. He doesn't do that with us either. Um, he doesn't say anything right away. It doesn't mean what we did was okay. It doesn't mean that he didn't know about it. It doesn't mean that he liked what we did. Kind of like sometimes with our kids. God does the same thing with us, right? Sometimes we're waiting on our kid. We know what he did. We're looking straight at him and we're giving them the opportunity to make it right. Okay. And sometimes that you got to have just natural consequences. And God does those exact same things with us, just like he did with Judas. Okay. Um, so Judas is over there crying, what about the poor? What about the children? And I joke, but I'm not joking because imagine, like, I feel like that's what happens nowadays is that we are flashed, we hit those heartstrings, right? Like Judas knew that that would hit the heartstrings, right? Like, what are you doing? We could have helped the poor with that. And I feel like sometimes be cautious. I'm just going to put this out there. This is not in my notes, but I feel like I need to put this little bit of caution out there. There's several companies that embezzle just like Judas did, okay? Do your research before you just hand out your hard-earned money as a sacrifice, okay? Because what some people say is a sacrifice is not necessarily a sacrifice because they ain't giving it to God. They're not doing nothing with it. They're keeping it for themselves. So, do some research about what you're about to do, okay? Sorry, I just had to plug that in there. Okay. Okay. So again, Judas is over there crying, like, what about the poor? Think of the children. And he didn't mean a lick of what he was saying, you guys. His heart was not doing it. Why? Because again, like I just said, he was taking some out, taking some out for himself and putting it away. He didn't care. Um, and Jesus was like, that's not what she's doing. She still cares about the poor. I'm not telling you you shouldn't care about the poor. I'm saying you will always have them, but you're not going to always have me here. And I love that. I love that Jesus was like, my time here is limited. And it's almost like he was telling Judas, like, you're not going to be able to ride off this train, be on this train much longer because what are you going to do? Because you're going to always have the poor, but you're not going to have me to do this with. Um, but he was looking at Mary going, what she did is very special. This is a special day. She is getting me ready for burial. And I imagine the the disciples going, what? What? Wait, you're leaving? What do you mean burial? When's this gonna happen? And it's not like Jesus is looking at him like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I've been telling you this the whole time. Are you kidding me? It's what I imagine. But that's what I said, that I love that Jesus calls off the hounds. He tells them, shut up, lay off of her. She's doing a good thing. This is why she is doing this. John 12:7 says that. Mark 14:6 says that she is doing a beautiful thing. Um, and I love that. I absolutely love that part. I love that. Um, he told him why in John 12:7. Um, I love that there's look at the stark comparison that we've got right now. We've got Judas, who is full of betrayal, greed, selfishness. And then you have Mary, that is full of love, devotion, giving, sacrificial love, even to Jesus up until the day that he was almost on the cross, right? And then let me just back up just a smidge, okay? Because a couple of weeks ago, we talked about a few women that after they took Jesus' body down off the cross, they were going to the tomb to what? Prepare him for burial. So my guess is they weren't here that night. That's what I imagine, because they would have been like, if they had been here this night during this meal of friends type of thing, wouldn't they have known that Mary did this and why she did this? I don't know. That's where my brain went when I started reading this. And I said that during our group this morning, and all of us were just like, what? Like, I love how God uses different things. And you guys, I didn't have this picked out. I didn't have like my whole timeline picked out. But yeah, a couple of weeks ago, last week was Herodias. The week before that, let's see, session 8. So it would have been session 7. We talked about Mary Magdalene and how she was going to the tomb and how she was with some other ladies. At first, they were going to the tomb, and yeah, and he wasn't there because he'd already, yeah. So, and they were going to prepare his body for burial. But Mary, here, Mary of Bethany, already did it. So, just seeing those pieces come together like that, I love it. Um, so again, you have that stark contrast. You have the disciples going, "Wait, what?" Mary was in tune with Jesus. That seemed like that was like her superpower. She could read a room, she could read people, she could be preemptive to what their needs were ahead of time. She could see and feel the pain that Jesus was in, the comfort that he needed in that moment. I feel like that's what she wanted to give him. Um, Jesus acknowledges that. He acknowledges that Mary is in tune with him, that she saw the pain that he was in. Um, and he says, Mary is in this beautiful moment, she has done that, right? It says also, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world. Oh gosh, okay. Wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. That's John or Mark 14:9. Here we are, 2,000 and some years later, still talking about this, over thousands and thousands of miles away from where this happened. You guys, it happens. We're still doing this. So the Bible is real. It's true. It's still going. It's alive. It's well. Okay. Um, we're still learning about this beautiful thing, like Mark 14:9 said, that Mary did. Okay. We're still hearing it. We're still studying it. We're still learning about it. And I'm just like, oh, mind blown when this type of stuff happens. I just like, I don't know. It gives me cold chills sometimes. Um, so I want to just remind everybody, like, we like to give our best to Jesus. I pray that we all recognize our own Mary moments, is what I call them now. I pray that we're in tune to the single mama needing a moment to catch her breath. I remember those days as a single mom. My son at the time was 3.5, almost 4, and we're at the back of a very big box store, okay? Toy aisle. I had said, "You've got to behave." Okay? I started out with the toy. This is how I did things. Maybe it wasn't right, but it did get my point across. I would let him hold the specific toy that he wanted in the store. And then if he threw a fit, I had told him ahead of time, if you throw a fit, you don't get to take that toy home. So it would be a reminder through the whole store. I gotta be good. I gotta be good. I can't be a jerk, right? Well, he started to be a jerk. I'm talking, throw himself on the floor. And I don't even remember what started this tantrum. But needless to say, the toy was taken out of his hands because this started before I took the toy out of his hand. And then it escalated, okay, to where I am football holding my 3.5, almost 4 year old, um, left the cart, sorry, not sorry, left the cart, football hold all the way out to the car. He's kicking one side, trying to bite me on the other side. We get to the car. I'm locking him in the car, got him in a car seat, that type of thing. And he is still like finding whatever kind of projectile item he could find in the back seat and trying to hurl it at my head because he is so mad at me. And so I pray that if you ever go past a mama that's either experiencing that in the store, or maybe she's already made it to her car like I did, but she's still just having a moment, that we pray that God gives her peace, gives her comfort, she feels his love. Um, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Maybe that your Mary moment is you're in the grocery store and you can see that somebody is really trying hard to, the person in front of you, um, be like, oh gosh, I don't have enough money for these groceries, or they're like a super tight budget, that type of thing. You can tell from the looks of them, type of thing. Maybe it's just because God put you, like, told you that. Sometimes you can't tell by the looks. It's just like you can tell they're having a hard time just because you feel it, type of thing. You're having a merry moment, right? You're reading the room. God's giving you these empathetic feelings, right? Maybe all you got's an extra like $10, and you're just like, here, this is all I have, but I want you to have it. God's wanting me to give you this. That's all you gotta do. You don't even have to say anything else, because that doesn't just doesn't happen, right? Maybe if you're working with somebody, maybe it's the woman standing next to you at work. She's going through something you don't know about, but you just get this feeling like, hey, can I pray for you? And she'll most likely say yes. Please do. Okay. I just pray that I don't get those at work because I work alone. I'm a like small business owner, and I'm by myself. Um, so yeah, let's just be in tune with, let's read the room, you guys. So yeah, I pray that it's maybe a woman that taking care of like her aging grandparents, or um, her parents, you know what I mean? Like, she's just hard. I was talking this morning that I feel like sometimes middle school, junior high, high school teachers, you guys, I know littles. I've been in the education before, and I have helped and helped teach with littles, like pre-K, kindergarten through 5th grade. Like, I was mostly in the elementary aspect of things, right? Yes, that's hard, but you don't really know true hard until, like, I lasted a half a day subbing for, I think it was like 7th grade one time. I was like, I'm never going back there again. These kids are horrible. So at those end of the year gifts that some parents like to give out, I ask you not to forget those middle school through high school teachers. Okay, maybe it's just a little something. Maybe it's just a thank you card. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe just say, I've been praying for you all year. I hope the year went well for you. Um, Something like that. I don't know. So I'm just saying, don't forget them either. The other thing is, on this very last thing that I'm going to say is, I just pray that we can all read a room like Mary. And I pray that we can give comfort to those that need it. I pray that um, we're sitting at the feet of Jesus, and we picture that, and that we give him our best first and foremost, just like she did. And I pray that we just all can be in tune to our Mary moment. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this week. Um, Stay tuned for next week's as well. And again, I don't know quite. Last week, I kind of knew where we were headed, sort of. This week, I'm not sure quite who we're looking at next. But We'll figure it out, okay? Again, don't forget you are so loved. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next